trust the process is great advice, but now everybody can celebrate the process at least a little bit. And they're celebrating in LA, but will that end against OKC? We'll figure that out. And the race that you absolutely had to see over the weekend, we'll tell you about all of it. Yahoo Sports Daily starts right now. She is Caroline Fenton. I am Jason Fitz. For the next 2 hours, we got you caught up on everything you need. And Caroline, when we say NBA action is fantastic, let's just be honest. Round one of the playoffs was absolutely incredible. Epic upsets, superstars, everything you could ever ask for in one series. But that means that there are some disappointed fan bases, my friend, this morning. So given the fact that there are three particular efforts that stand out as the worst of it all, we are going to break down the most embarrassing efforts throughout the course of the playoffs. All right, what do you got for me? Give me, when you think the most embarrassing loss of the entire playoffs so far in the NBA. I think I know where you're going to go first. What do you have?
I think when we talk embarrassing, you have to talk about expectations. So when we're talking expectations, when we're talking about ceiling, when we're talking about a team that looked like they had a clear path paved to the NBA Finals, but won't even be advancing to the second round, it has to be the Celtics, right? The Celtics have to be the team with the most, hands down, the most embarrassing loss in the first round. How many times were we saying the East stinks? There's no clear contender outside of Boston in the East. Boston's going to be able to, totally just skate into the finals. Boston doesn't even need Jason Tatum at 100%. They can just rest him up until they inevitably face Oklahoma City or San Antonio in the finals. That is how we were talking about this Boston team, because they looked like they could be that team. We weren't talking about the Sixers as any sort of world beaters. We're like, okay, great. Philadelphia gets out of the play-in. They get into the first round of the playoffs. But we were like, at least I said, I think that Boston may be kind and give Philly one game, and this series would be done in 5. I did not think it'd go any further than that. Yet Boston just allowed Philadelphia to hang around. And it wasn't just losing that series, Fitz, because losing that series is bad enough. A team that had legitimate championship upside. That's how good the Celtics looked. A team with legitimate championship expectations. Getting bounced by a Philly team that none of us really talked about at all because we didn't really think they were worth talking about. Not just losing that series, but the manner in which they did it. Boston was 36 for 129 from 3 in their final 3 games of that series. 3 consecutive games that they lost to Philadelphia. I think that's embarrassing in and of itself. It's embarrassing for Joe Mazzulla, I think, because I know that Boston wants to live and die by the 3. And if you're okay with that, then fine. And if you can sleep at night knowing that you shot 49 threes in game 7 and only made 13 of them and didn't think that you really needed to adjust at any point in time, fine, that's on you. But I just feel like, okay, Joe Mazzulla, what are you doing? What is your role if that's the only thing that you can do? If that's the only weapon that it feels like you're trying to deploy in these games? What is your job as a coach? What are you doing as a coach if you only really have one true weapon, and when it's not working, you just continue to go back to the bag?
It's tough because everybody hated Mazzulla's strategy until Mazzulla's strategy won a title. And now what do we do? Because this is the NBA that we live in. You won a title, but still this is Boston. So there's championship expectations every single year. I'm torn. I agree with you. This is by far the most embarrassing loss. What I don't know of the playoffs so far, what I don't know, though, is how to put context around a season that wasn't supposed to be this good for Boston, but did turn out to be that. So it's interesting because if we went back to our conversations in August about the Celtics, and I told you, hey, they lose in the first round of the 76ers, everybody would say, yeah, of course. No, Tatum's going to be out most of the year, blah, blah, blah. This becomes embarrassing because the expectation changed. Everything shifted when Boston looked so good. Everything shifted when at one point we were trying to have a Jaylen Brown for MVP conversation. Why is he not giving enough MVP love? And then he goes in and has a first round that is absolutely forgettable. I would argue that this first round was as damaging to the conversations around Brown as a superstar as winning a championship was beneficial to it. So this is about the biggest kick in the no-nos you can take if you're Boston, because you did suddenly change everybody's mindset with how far ahead you were, even without Tatum being in. And as you saw earlier in the graphics, undefeated when you're up 3-1 in a series. As a franchise, never found a way to lose that before. And now you did, and you lost it to a rival. You lost it to another fan base that's big and loud. You lost it to another team that's loud. And all of a sudden, that just becomes this sort of punch in the gut to the Celtics. So I agree with you. I think that that's the most embarrassing, although I do think we have to have the context of Boston's season overall was still better than I thought it would be. This result is embarrassing for where they should have been in the process. So if they
I
are
want to stick on
clearly
that
to
for a
both of us,
second, though, Fitzy.
go ahead.
I want to stick on that for a second before we get to the second most embarrassing team. I don't want to hear about what Boston's season expectations were in August or September. Like, I don't want to hear, well, nobody thought that Boston was going to be good this year anyway, so it's fine. Because expectations change over time. I mean, I was up here talking about should Boston just tank this year and try to get AJ Debonsa in the draft and try and get a lottery pick. Like, that's what I was saying over the summer. But then in January and February, I was like, man, I was such an idiot for saying that because clearly Boston is one of the best teams in the league. I don't want to hear about what your expectations were in August when your expectations drastically changed based off of results that we were seeing in January and February and March. Because expectations change, expectations should change, and especially when it was over the course of months throughout the entirety of a season. I don't think that's fair to say that, well, nobody thought that we would be here. Yeah, but you were.
I hear you, but my pushback to that is that's what we do. Look at the way we treated the Patriots. Yes, it was the Super Bowl, but the Patriots got just curb stomped in the Super Bowl, right? And all of a sudden everybody said, yeah, but they're playing with house money. Come on. Like, they're so much better than we thought they would be. I know this is
You
the
never
first round.
play with
It's not
house
the
money
Super
in the
Bowl.
Super Bowl.
I mean, but that was the narrative. It was like, hey, don't worry, they'll be back. Everything's going to be fine. I hear you, though. I think there's a fine line on all of it. The second most embarrassing loss for you, what's number two? If the Celtics are clearly at the top of the list, who's number two?
It's Denver. And it's the same thing as Boston. Even though Denver, I don't think had the same level of sky high expectations that Boston did. I think we all kind of viewed Denver as that third best team in the West. OKC was alone by themselves in that god tier in the West. And then it seemed like San Antonio was kind of that 2 and Denver was that 3. But it was the manner in which Denver lost. When Minnesota didn't have Ant, when Minnesota didn't have Dante DiVincenzo, when Minnesota was riddled with injury up and down the lineup, they didn't have their superstar out there on the court, and yet Denver still couldn't close that series out. Denver still couldn't get anything going. That Rudy Gobert basically, I don't want to say totally and completely shut Jokic down, but made Jokic as close to a non-factor as we have seen in a very long time in the NBA postseason. That Jamal Murray was literally a non-factor. That Denver just looked like they were put in a blender by a Minnesota team that was playing with their skeleton crew. So, look, Minnesota's a good team. Minnesota is a very good team. If you would have told me that they advanced to the second round of the postseason, a month ago, I wouldn't have been surprised. But for Denver, a team with one of the best players on the planet, 2 of the best closers in the NBA in Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, to go down the way they did against a battered and bruised Minnesota team, ooh, brutal.
Yeah, to that end, I struggled. I almost put Denver as the most embarrassing loss because to me, Minnesota had excuses. Like, Minnesota had excuses to come in and say, this is why we lost the series, which means Denver had none. I mean, if you look at how decimated this Timberwolves team was, they shouldn't have been in this series, and they were. And then you think about the conversations that we've been having all year about Denver. Are we sleeping on Denver? Are we not giving Jokic and Murray enough credit as a dynamic duo can will their team to a championship? Shouldn't we be giving their championship pedigree more traction? We said all of these things leading into it because I particularly thought that the West was going to be a 3-team race, and it turns out I was wrong. They weren't. And I was wrong because that man right there just didn't show up in much of this series. I mean, 4 for 17 in a game where your team needs you is absolutely inexcusable. If Harden had done the same thing, we'd be losing our minds, right? So I look at the way that Denver lost, and I look at who they lost to. It's not that they lost to the Timberwolves, it's that they lost to a shell of the Timberwolves. As I keep saying, they lost to the JV version of Minnesota that you got to turn around and look in the mirror. Now, Minnesota can take a lot of momentum from the win, and Minnesota can take a lot of credit, and they deserve every ounce of that. But to me, when we talk about embarrassing outcomes, losing to a Philly team where you've got a backcourt that at times this year looked great, and you had an Embiid that was able to come in and at least be dynamic for the Celtics. I can find the rivalry. I can find the reason. I can walk myself into, okay, 7-game series. It was wild. Denver losing to Minnesota may not be the most embarrassing, Caroline, but to me, by far, it's the most inexcusable loss of the first round because you lost to that version of Minnesota. I can't get that out of my head. Like, Denver is broken. If you lose to that version of Minnesota, you are a broken team.
There's no doubt about it. And if Minnesota was at full strength, I think the conversation and the narrative would be different. Still a disappointment because we view Denver as a better team than Minnesota. But clearly Minnesota brought a different level of intensity in the postseason, which, like, I think is fair to expect from any team that finds themselves in the NBA postseason. But it's far less excusable, dare I say, whenever you are playing not even just a Minnesota team that, like, has a couple of injuries here and there, losing Anthony Edwards. They don't have Anthony Edwards out there on the court, and you have Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, and you can't close the series out. Like, there are certain series, I think, like, let's just say if we're living in a world where the 76ers lost last night, they lost game 7, Boston advances. I think that you can look at it and say, you know what? What a great effort from this Philadelphia team. Nobody expected them to be in that series. They were able to take them to 7 games. Like, man, that sucks. You get that far and you look as good as you looked, and Joel Embiid looked as good as he looked at times in that series. So it's definitely a bummer, but I think at the end of the day, you can sleep at night and know that, hey, your team really went out there and gave it their all. Obviously, that's not what happened, but I think that would be a fair reaction from us and from 76ers fans if that is the way that it went. Sometimes you lose in a series in the postseason and you don't feel like the sky is falling because nobody really thought that you would be there in the first place anyway. This is not that. This is one of those series that went so epically wrong. This is one of those series that you look so uncharacteristically bad that you just don't have answers for a team that you should have every answer against, that it commands questions of the future, of what does that core look like? What does the coaching staff look like? It brings up the question of, should Denver go in a different direction? Now, you're not going to trade Jokic, right? Let's not go that crazy. But I think that that's the conversations that are being had in Denver right now of is the future of this team, of this core, and of this coaching staff, because those are the conversations that you have to have when you lose a series as brutally as Denver did against Minnesota.
When we are talking about embarrassing losses, and we've been talking about series, I think we have to make sure at number 3 on this list, we get in a key moment, a moment that many of us will never forget, that we saw the number 3 most embarrassing loss of the entire thing. Not necessarily a series, but a game. The Magic blowing game 6. And it's not just that they blew game 6. It's that they went 43 minutes of actual real time in life without making a basket. Like, when you think of that, they missed 27 of their last 28 shots in game 6. They went from having a 20-point lead to getting beat, and it took all the air out of the building. It took all the air out of the team. It took all of the expectations. The Magic were having this run, Caroline, where I was sitting back saying, hey, I love that I was wrong about this team in the play-in. I love the way they're playing. This is incredible. This is spicy. We're going to get chaos in the East. And then all of a sudden, the Magic were the least magical thing we've ever seen. Like a magic trick gone bad. The Magic meltdown has to be on this list for embarrassing moments in the playoffs at number 3.
Like, staggeringly bad. Have you ever seen something that's so terrible that it's, like, almost impressive? It's like, wow, I didn't even know that something could be this incompetent, yet you proved me wrong. That's what the Magic shooting night was on Friday night. I mean, my goodness, like you mentioned, 43 minutes of actual real life time without a single bucket. They missed 23 straight shots. 23. Fitz, I think that, like, defies the laws of physics. to miss 23 consecutive shots. If you blindfold somebody, the odds of them actually making a shot 1 in 23, I feel like are pretty good. But no, not the Orlando Magic. 4 of 37. 4 of 37 from the field in the second half. After you're up 22 points at halftime? How? Literally, how is that humanly possible? This is so bad that it's impressive. We covered the IFL this past weekend, Fitz and I together. So on Friday night, I was on a flight to Jacksonville. So I'm boarding my plane, and Orlando, they're kind of firing all cylinders. Pella Bancaro, he's feeling it. So I'm thinking, okay, man, I started as I sat down on the flight, and I didn't pay for Wi-Fi because not in this economy. So I'm sitting down on the flight, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm trying to get my takes together, get my thoughts together of how epically bad this was for Detroit, how impressive of a postseason turnaround this was for Orlando. So this is what I'm thinking about on my hour-long flight to Jacksonville. I land, I pop open the Amazon Prime app, and I pop in my headphones, and I'm listening to the game, and I hear on the broadcast, 17 straight missed shots for Orlando. And I'm like, what? I spent the last hour of this flight thinking about how impressive it was that Orlando did this when I didn't even give them, a snowball's chance in hell against Charlotte in the play-in, and now here they are, going the distance in a 7-game series. So, yeah, I think that you have to call out Orlando for how epically bad, not the entire series was, but how epically bad that second half was.
They were getting punches. They were landing punches, and they had them up against the ropes, and then they gave Detroit just enough sliver of life that just you could feel that Orlando wasn't going to be able to walk their way back into this series. So Detroit obviously wins the series, and I'm not going to say that a 7-game series between a 1 and an 8 is ever an epic disappointment, but certainly the way that this one went down for Orlando will always sit in the minds of Magic fans. That a moment has been created where for the rest of time, Magic fans will say, but where were you when? And it wasn't one of those good moments. It's a where were you when that will haunt this fan base, this franchise, and these superstars for the rest of time. That being said, we've got second round action. That means we get to preview it next. Coming up, the matchup we all want because we love the drama. Sixers Knicks. Oh, injected in my veins. We'll tell you about it.
Broader question, I think, from the Phoenix side, how do you feel about their direction moving forward? How do you feel about their ability to build off of what this season was?
How could you feel bad about the direction? They weren't supposed to be here. You have a coach that understands exactly what he wants to do on both ends of the floor. So just getting the right pieces around it, having a level of versatility, that's all you got to do. So I think it's a salute to Phoenix. It's unfortunate it went this way in the playoffs, but the Thunder are a machine, and it was a bad matchup.
There were rumors that this was going to happen before the draft, that Jadarian Price was going to end up going to the Seahawks at 32. I think you can make a very strong argument that you could take Price as early as the 106. That might end up getting you in trouble, but I don't know if I feel that strongly about some of the other players in that range.
There was not many other depth charts across the league where there's just a smooth sailing spot to that running back one position.
Also got a rushing touchdown. Gonna run it to Brown. Flea flicker. Back to Myler. Under pressure. Myler throws it late. Brown. And Brown, the stiff arm, crosses the midfield. Down the far boards. Brown for the end zone. Waltzes in for the Rattlers touchdown.
That's the MVP throwing to the offensive rookie of the year right there.
So Brown took the handoff, flipped it back, and then he found space.
The truth here is this is a very far delineation from where the top of the quarterback game is right now, physically.
Correct.
When you look at, you call the top 12 quarterbacks, everyone's got some sort of extreme physical trump card.
This ain't Taylor Green.
Part of the problem to me with this pick is you saw exactly where the physical limitations hurt Ty Simpson last year at Alabama.
Simpson is a pretty good athlete, but I'm not going to run design runs with him because you'll get crushed.
We had to do some censoring here because some not T language coming out over history between Cat and Joel Embiid. We all know this. They are not speaking in ways. I hope their parents aren't reading their Twitter X, because on social media it's just not nice. But this whole series is going to be a bunch of that, Caroline. As now we get Philly taking on the Knicks. You get two fan bases that are absolutely ready to rage against each other. You get two stars that are ready to rage against each other. You get two teams that are ready to absolutely get out there. I cannot express, when the dust is settled, just the brand excitement I have for this series is real, Caroline.
1,000% real. And that's kind of how I felt about that Celtics Sixers series. The brands, the fact that both of those two teams and fan bases hate each other. This is no different. Philly fans and New York fans, just in general, famously hate each other. Those two, as we just saw on Twitter, don't seem to like each other very much. So it just feels right that these two brands, Philadelphia and New York, the Sixers and the Knicks, are finding themselves on this kind of stage. But Fitzy, I think the number one thing that I'm going to be looking at least going into this series, is how both of these two teams respond to emotional first rounds. The Knicks probably went further with the Hawks, or it was a little bit more exciting than we initially anticipated. But they're coming off of that 50-point win, the biggest Knicks postseason win in franchise history. The Celtics go down, so all of a sudden everyone's talking about you being the favorite in the East. I mean, they're feeling themselves, right? The vibes are good in Bing Bong Town. When you look at the Sixers, obviously an emotional Game 7 win in a series that nobody gave you a chance in a series against a team, like I just said, that you hate. So both of these teams are coming in on such an emotional high. Which team is able to move on from that quicker? Which team is maybe still hung up on the vibes and the high of winning the first round, and they can't quite turn the page? I'm not saying that I expect either of these two teams or both of these teams to still be hung up on round one, but who's able to just flush it down the toilet, turn the page, move on to the next one? And then also I think health. Obviously, we're looking at Joel Embiid's health, but health in both these two teams in this series.
When you say it that way, though, aren't we really in this series looking to see which team can be? I guess each team is going to be fighting the caricature of what that team is throughout the course of this series.
Mm-hmm.
You just mentioned Embiid's health, right? And that's always a conversation with Philly. I feel like anytime, if you take a shot every time we're not sure about Embiid's health, you are going to be in rehab quickly. Then the other side of it is you mentioned that New York gets this just huge win to eliminate the Hawks, which only frustrates me more to the Knicks. Like, the best of the Knicks looks like world beaters. The worst of the Knicks look like they don't belong in the playoffs. So, can the Knicks find some normal level of just, hey, we're not going to be this manic basketball team. We're going to find level ground, and we're going to be this consistently every night. So I got to trust the consistency of the Knicks, or I got to trust the health of Joel Embiid. I don't feel good about either of those things. So that's what part of what makes this series so exciting to me, is trying to figure out what that looks like. And the fact that you've got Embiid sitting at a microphone telling the fans, the last time we played, it felt like Madison Square Garden East here. I need you guys to show up. You've got Philly already putting measures in place where they're denying ticket sales to people outside of the billing zone of the Philadelphia area. They are trying to keep Knicks fans out of the building. They are aggressively trying to capture home court advantage. That speaks to just what they expect from the fans. I genuinely believe the ability to control emotion, the ability to control adrenaline, the ability to maximize home court advantage, these things are going to be amplified in this series, because not only do they hate each other, but we love to hate on everything both of these teams do. Whatever the Knicks and 76ers do become conversation pieces all across the media spectrum. They love this too, because the players embrace this. The players in front of microphones, the players aren't holding back. So I think when you've got a series like this where the players are going to talk their talk, and we're all going to analyze every single second of it, which team can find that level ground version of themselves, Caroline, becomes the difference in this series. And I think that's almost an impossible question to answer.
I also just want to say there's no petty quite like the petty of basketball teams and fans in the Northeast. The petty level of the Sixers saying, oh, you live in New York? You're not coming here. And the petty level of what I expect from some Knicks fans to go ahead and call up their banks and change the address on their credit card. Maybe look up Zillow, Go on Zillow, find some homes for sale in Philadelphia, change the address on their credit card to that, and then go in and buy tickets for this game and then hop on the train to Philly. Would not put it past some of the Knicks fans. So I love the pettiness that we are already seeing from these two teams and these two fan bases. And I think the pettiness that we're only going to see continue. But I think to what you're just saying, the unpredictability, the lack of trust that we have in both of these two teams. For the Knicks, it's the lack of trust at times that we have to play to their ceiling. For the Sixers, it's the lack of trust that we have in the health and availability of Joel Embiid. I think that just speaks to the chaos that is the entirety of the East. I think that speaks to the lack of trust that we have of any team that comes out of the East. There's this certain sense of trust that we have in Oklahoma City. There's certain sense of trust that we have in the Spurs and Wemby and the way that they can beat you in so many different ways. There's this certain just beautiful and fluid basketball that sometimes we see being played in the West. And then in the East, it's just like a bunch of chickens running around with their heads cut off. And that I say that as a term of endearment because that's how fun I think this series is going to be.
There is a spot for me, though, where I think one of the more interesting angles in this becomes the pressure. Because I know there's always pressure when you play at Madison Square Garden, and I know there's always pressure when you play for the Knicks. But the elimination of the Celtics by the 76ers, the 76ers are still, at this point, nobody's looking at the 76ers or has been looking at the 76ers all season and saying, it's finals or bust. That has been a real conversation about the Knicks over and over and over again. And I'm sorry, Detroit fans. I am not sleeping on the number one seed that advanced. But Detroit didn't look like Detroit for much of their first round series against Orlando, which only fuels more of my thought process around James Dolan standing up and saying anything less than an NBA Finals appearance is a failure for this team. I feel like just the way the first round shook out weirdly put even more pressure on the shoulders of the Knicks organization because the expectation from Knicks fans, from the players, I'm sure, and certainly from the organization now is, man, with the Celtics out and with the Pistons not great, this is the Knicks year. So how the Knicks handle what I think is a wild amount of pressure is real to me.
But if I have to pick between these two teams, of which team do I feel more confident in being able to handle the pressure? Which team do I trust more to turn the page and keep their eyes on this series versus, continuing to ride the high of the first series? It's the Knicks, because the Knicks have been here before. Because the Knicks are a team full of veterans. The Knicks are a team that were just in this position last year and understands that you have to just move on quickly and turn the page. Because if you don't, then you will get got in the postseason versus a Sixers team that is riding off of vibes. And I do think that the ability to play free without expectation can be a heck of a drug in the postseason. And that's exactly what the Sixers are playing with right now. I think the Sixers right now are just playing with house money. So I think there is, a very positive effect that can have. But I mean, we're talking about a Sixers team that relies in part on a rookie and VJ Edgecombe to really play up to a certain level. That we're relying on the health and availability of Joel Embiid. And when Joel Embiid is available, I mean, we saw how electric he can be, and we saw that against the Celtics. I don't know how many eggs I can really put in the Joel Embiid health basket. So when it comes to a level of trust, when it comes to being able to handle expectation, when it comes to being able to turn the page, I think I do trust New York more because they have been in this position more recently.
All right, so give me your pick. Who you got in the series?
Taking Knicks in 6. I think the Sixers absolutely have what it takes to make this series interesting, which is why I'm saying 6. But we saw in that last game against Atlanta what New York's ceiling is. And New York's ceiling is higher than Philly's. Now, the question is, can we see them play to that ceiling consistently? I don't know. But I think that New York is the better team. New York has been here before. New York is hungrier. New York has the higher expectations. Philly's going to make it interesting, but I'm taking New York in 6.
I like that pick, but we're trying to sell papers here. So you went Knicks in 6. I'll go headline here. I'll go Sixers in 7. Look, this all comes down to, do I trust Karl Anthony Towns to be consistent every night and the best version of himself, or do I trust Joel Embiid's health? And the answer is I trust neither. So knowing that I trust neither, I do not trust Kat to go out and have this series of a lifetime, and I don't trust Joel Embiid to be healthy in this series. I don't really know how it's going to play out because that's the variable we can't predict. So if I just take level, what I'm going to do in this situation, so I'm going to say if I have to give one side trust, I'll give both side trust. If I trust Cat to be consistent, then I will trust in this situation Embiid to be healthy. And if Embiid is healthy for the whole series, watch out. Sixers in 7 becomes the chaos that we're wishing for. All right, from the East, we'll go to the West coming up next. We've got a matchup that could be one that changes everybody's tone, even now, about the King. We'll talk about it next.
Kick is on the way. And Dante Wright will bring it out of the end zone. Right across the 5, the 10, the 15. Right across the 20. Into New Mexico territory. 15, 10, 5. Does he get in?
He did.
Touchdown,
he did.
Pirates.
Dante Wright goes back. He played like a center fielder at Yankee Stadium and then takes it the length of the building. The young man was electric on that kick return.
Do you not enjoy this?
No.
Would you rather not do it?
That's not in the cards.
Why not?
It's not an option. I've worked so hard for so long. I've built myself up to a position and I've dug myself into a hole.
But I feel like you've reached a point in your life where, correct me if I'm wrong, you could do other things.
What am I going to do? There's nothing like a fight night check. That's the beauty of fighting.
Let's get to your next winner here, Boone. And this time we're not talking about a rookie. We're talking about a veteran fallout. Who's a winner to you from the NFL draft?
I think Rashee Rice has to be mentioned, right? Now he doesn't have any additional new competition that we have to worry about, especially a guy like Tate could have shown up there and been that true outside receiver for them. But we're looking at his fantasy outlook right now, and fantasy-wise, this year and beyond, it still looks pretty good. He survived the draft.
Edwards has got it. Throw, tip, intercepted. Destin Mack, the INT. And he makes the biggest play of the game defensively for Orlando.
Great coverage on the back end by the Orlando Pirates. 4th down and 4. Destin Mack in coverage. Big time hit by Kyrie Coleman leads to the interception.
Outside of just championships, LeBron now owns 4 of the most impressive accomplishments in NBA history. You see them there. 2007, we all remember that team, 22 years old, to the finals. 2015, that team to in the finals without your 2 stars. 2018, greatest individual playoff run. A lot of playoff success here. And, of course, 2026, winning a playoff series at 41 years old is the number one option. And this is something that I think is still stunning and staggering to all of us, that this is a shell of the Lakers that came in. And, you know, granted, Caroline, I picked the Lakers to beat the Rockets. I was not surprised by the outcome of that series. But at the end of the day, I still think it's a statement that LeBron is playing this well. And now he gets another massive test. So could we argue that at this point, LeBron James' biggest test of all time would be trying with this Lakers team to beat this Oklahoma City team?
Look, it is a massive undertaking, especially with the giant question mark that is Luka Doncic's availability. I can't say, though, that this is LeBron James's greatest test of his career, because I think I always go back to expectation. And his expectations as a 41-year-old, 2 to 3 on this team, fair to say? Like, LeBron is one piece of a trio with Luka and Austin Reeves, are far more different than what his expectations were, let's say, in 2016, when the Cavs were the number 1 seed in the East, when he was single-handedly, hands down, the focal point, the center, the superstar on that Cavs team. Like, that changes the pressure level, that changes the test level, in my opinion. Because at this point, as they're taking on the reigning champions, the best team in the NBA, the betting favorite to win another championship, like the expectations for this Lakers team going into a series against OKC are far different. At this point, I think it's fair to say that the Lakers are kind of playing with house money. that LeBron is no longer expected to carry the Lakers. Like, when LeBron carried the Lakers in some of those games in the first round, it was like, man, look at what LeBron is doing. Like, it was worthy of commanding a conversation, and rightfully so. When LeBron was doing that in 2016, down 3-1 against the Warriors, like, that was expected. So I don't think that this is a bigger test than that was. Just because if the Lakers lose in 5 against OKC, isn't that just like kind of what we expected? Especially with no Luka?
But that's why I think if he's able to do the unthinkable, let me be very clear for the record here so that nobody gets this twisted. I think the Lakers are going to get slaughtered in this series. I think they are going to absolutely get beat down in this series. And it's going to change a lot of our conversation about what we've seen so far. That being said, you just saw Ben Fox's tweet was up there, and he talked about the biggest underdog, the largest point underdog of LeBron James' playoff career. When we talk about the great accomplishments of him, even if we go back to the championship team that, we all think of and that great moment for him with the Cavs, I would say to that was a Cleveland team that had gone to the finals the year before. That was a Cleveland team that was a number 1 seed in the East. That was a Cleveland team that still had talent around him. Yeah, they were taking on an all-time great team, but I'm not going to sit here and say that he was in there with a bunch of bums when they took down the Warriors. So, I think part of this is that right now the Lakers roster is such a shell of themselves that it would be so wildly impressive if he is still the number 1 option through all this. There's so many ifs right now, right? Like, does Austin Reeves take over and take on a bigger role? Does Luka somehow magically come back into this series? Is Oklahoma City ever going to get healthy in this series or this year for that matter? But realistically, if we're talking about LeBron, does what he did in the last series, where he is the man, he is the force, he is the reason, and he wills them to a win over this Oklahoma City team with what he has around him at 41, I think it would be probably the most impressive series win. But what the other part of this that's already so difficult, Caroline, is that doesn't change the one narrative that everybody wants changed. The one argument, like when people want to come in and fault LeBron, what they say all the time is look at how many final series he's lost. Well, unless this Lakers team is going to go out and erase the losses in the finals, it's not going to change a lot of people's minds. Like, if that's the hill you die on, well, look at his record in the finals. Okay, there's nothing this series is going to do. And I have a hard time, even though I think this would be the most impressive series we've seen him go through and win. How do I put value on a second round series that's anywhere near the value that we put on a championship series? And that's just, how does history remember a second round series for a team that eventually loses in the playoffs, if that's what happens here, versus how history remembers the championship? So that's where, I think sometimes LeBron is fighting ghosts and he's fighting straw man arguments and he's fighting all of these things that aren't real. If at 41, he can single-handedly will the Lakers to a win in this series over OKC, then my God, to me, that's just one of those moments you step back and you say, we are not worthy. Thank you for letting us watch it. I don't know if it will change people's mindsets that are already dug in one way or the other on LeBron, but it would be that impressive moment for me.
I think we're arguing 2 different things, because I am with you and I am not pushing back on if LeBron without Luka, and look, Luka's a question mark, with or without Luka, if LeBron is able to carry the Lakers the way that he carried them in that first series against Oklahoma City, I do think that you have to say that is, I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment here, the most impressive thing that LeBron James has done. And I know championships are far more impressive than anything, but I still think that you have to add context to who Oklahoma City is, how we were talking about the Lakers at one point in the season. Like, we were having a conversation at one point in the season of should the Lakers move on from LeBron, because that's how bad it looked like at times. So I don't want to argue that, especially because I'm giving the Lakers a 0% chance to win this series without Luka. So if they're able to do it, then I have to give credit where credit is due. But I'm looking at it at a certain test level. That is this the biggest test that LeBron has faced in his entire career? I say no, because nobody expects the Lakers to win this series. I think a test is much greater when all of the expectations on your shoulders, when all eyes are on you to win in that series, and you do or you don't. I mean, I think the expectation and test level is different than maybe what the Lakers are facing here. But if the Lakers are able to do what nobody expects, what I don't expect them to do, and that is to beat Oklahoma City, you better win a championship. Because how unsatisfying would it be to take down the big bad Oklahoma City Thunder when you're not 100% and then lose in the next round? Like that, oh, unsatisfying to say the least.
I mean, you're right. Like, that's what this conversation becomes. You and I both believe that the
Yeah.
Lakers are going to lose this series. If the Lakers win this series, why can't they win the championship? That's the inevitable, because OKC is the best team in the league. So if you can beat OKC, then you can certainly beat anybody that's going to be coming at you moving forward. I also think that we need to have some context to the series they just won. Like, I'm consistent on this. I just said a few minutes ago, hey, when we're talking about the Knicks, we also have to acknowledge it was the Hawks they beat, right? Like, when we're talking about the Lakers, they beat a Rockets team that was largely without KD throughout the course of that series. And I know, and our producer, Mike Goldfarb, pointed out at the beginning of as we were getting ready for our show, that the Lakers upsetting the Rockets by Vegas odds is one of the 10 greatest upsets in NBA history in betting odds, right? I'm stunned by that because, guys, I've been saying this how long? Like, the Rockets sucked. I don't think the Rockets are a good basketball team. I don't think KD on the court would have made a difference. I expected the Lakers to win this. So maybe the reason I'm not sitting here just going, oh, shucks, and I can't believe what I just saw is that I thought the Lakers would win in the first round. I thought LeBron would do what LeBron did in the first round. I am amazed by his ability at 41 years old. I'm amazed that he's been able to do this in a playoff series where the physicality is such a grind, but also the schedule of that playoff series is real. They did get a couple of extra days rest, which is key for legs on LeBron at an older age. There was real opportunity for him to be as fresh as you can be in the grind of the playoffs. I think all of these things were predictable. We could have seen this coming. So I think it's amazing that the Lakers are here in some senses, but I'm also not amazed that the Lakers are here because LeBron did in the first round exactly what I thought he would do against the Houston Rockets. The problem for the Lakers is that they're not taking on the Houston Rockets in this round. They're taking on an Oklahoma City Thunder team that had nothing to play for most of the year other than let's just wait for the playoffs. They're taking on an OKC team that has been riddled by injuries and still is the number one seed. They're taking on an OKC team that's younger and deeper. They're taking on an OKC team that can ride their bench so much better than the Lakers can, that the Lakers can't compete top to bottom. So the funny thing for me is maybe the reason I'm not over my skis in the second round, Caroline, is because I thought the Lakers did exactly what I thought they would do in the first round. And now I think all that's happened for that. Congratulations. You got a big playoff win, and it feels better to beat the Rockets than to lose to them. That's fine. I just think now they're dead man walking straight down the aisle towards an OKC team that is going to remind us exactly where the Lakers are in the lexicon of the NBA right now and exactly where OKC is.
How much does Luka change the calculus on this series, in your opinion? Because if Luka's not available, let's just say for a majority of the series, like I do not think the Lakers even can win a game, honestly. Like, I give the Lakers a 0% chance in this series. Add Luka into the equation, how much does that change things in this series, in your opinion? And how much does that change the way that we might view LeBron in this series?
So the funny thing, that the second half of that question is a really important one. The first half, I would say this. Yeah. I don't think Luka's going to be able to come in and just knock the rust off from missing a couple of weeks. I think Luka's a non-factor in this series. If Luka comes back and suddenly the Lakers will the Lakers take down OKC, are we going to be talking about, oh my God, LeBron took down OKC? Or are we going to be talking about, oh my God, look at what Luka just did, right? Like it's just the inevitability of it, because Luka coming back would require the best of Luka. For them to win this series requires the absolute, oh my God, MVP level of Luka Doncic, which means in order for that to happen, the conversation will inevitably be more about Luka. The conversation will be, I can't believe LeBron kept the Lakers alive long enough for Luka to save them. That's the inevitability.
And I think it depends on how things shake out. Of like, if Luka does have a ramping up period and LeBron is still able to carry the Lakers and LeBron is still able to, win games for the Lakers and allow Luka time to kind of get his legs underneath him, then I think that conversation is different. But if we see a 40-point game from Luka and LeBron continues to kind of be I'm going to say role player, and everyone's going to freak out about that. But that's kind of like LeBron has played a different role for this team for a majority of the season. I'm not talking about the Rockets series. I'm talking about a majority of the season. Like, LeBron at times is a passenger and is not a captain. I don't think that's a hot take. So if Luka has a 40-point game and LeBron does enough to support Luka in a winning effort, then yeah, then the conversation does change and should change. This is Luka's team now.
100%. The best of the Lakers this year, I will remind everybody, was Luka being the dominant force, Austin Reeves playing at an incredible level, and LeBron being the best third option we've ever seen on a team in NBA history. So obviously that series is going to be can't miss, but that's not the only series coming up that looks like it could be epic. Can the Wolves continue to absolutely shock the world and take down that man? We'll figure it out next.
This is rich to me, but again, this is this draft class. Once you get outside the top 10, it's like whatever. But I do think this is a little rich to me. But Les Snead loves his Bama guys. I know he went to Auburn, but he has a thing for anyone that's played in the SEC in the South. He really does. You should have seen his write-up on Julio Jones. It was like fan fiction. This to me is just like, all right, I get your argument. At 13, like that is, you're pushing it. You have one of the best rosters in the NFL right now. Right. This could be a difference maker at some position.
Now, I said to a reporter today, tell me the top 5 stars in the UFC right now. Islam.
Yep, I agree.
Tom Aspinall.
Okay.
Pereira.
Yep. Ilya Taporia.
Yes, he said him.
Khamzat Chimaev.
Yes, and him. I think that was the 5.
Okay.
And I was like, I just feel like right now I look at Tom Aspinall and think you are one of the biggest stars in the sport.
Give us your final loser here, Boone.
Denzel Boston. Among this rookie class, I think we had a lot of hope that he was going to go in round 1. That didn't occur. But they took a first-round receiver in Casey Concepcion, who I think is a better prospect. This team often has to deal with bad weather late in the season, which can also impact pass catchers at the worst possible time in the fantasy calendar. It all boils down to me not being nearly as excited about him as a prospect in Dynasty or redraft.
Edwards on second down, deep shot, end zone, jump ball caught. What a catch for 6. Edwards drops a dime, and Tulsa with Spencer Tears answers right back. 4th down for Orlando. They're taking an end zone shot, and they've got another touchdown. Paxton DeLorette is dealing on a Sunday.
Breaking news at Yahoo Sports Daily. This comes from Shams. The Orlando Magic have dismissed head coach Jamahl Mosley. Sources tell ESPN Mosley's tenure in Orlando finishes after 5 seasons, 3 consecutive playoff runs, 2023 to 2026. Orlando had a first-round elimination for the 3rd straight time Sunday. And Caroline, it's not always just about the elimination. It's about the how. As we've already talked about in today's show, Orlando had a historic meltdown in Game 6 that led to a loss. Then they lose in Game 7 for a team that certainly played their way into the playoffs and then had expectations up against the number 1 seed. I don't know if we're shocked by this move.
I expected this move. This move was not an if, this move was a when for me. We even talked about this in our pre-show meeting. We said, I think Jamahl Mosley gets fired in the middle of the show. Taking wagers on that. And of course, that is the case. So we expected this move to come. It's because of the total and complete offensive meltdown that we saw in Game 6. And you might say, look, we didn't expect the Magic, to take the Pistons to 7 games. Why is this move happening? I think we have to go all the way back to the beginning of this season and look at the fact that a lot of people, ourselves included, thought that the Magic could be one of those dark horse teams. That if we were talking about, a 1-8 series in the first round, a lot of people thought that maybe it would be the Pistons that would be the 8 seed and the Magic would be the 1 and not vice versa. So it's not just about where the Magic were at the end of the season versus where they were now. It's the fact that everyone expected the Magic to be significantly better throughout the course of the entirety of the season than they actually were. So I think that this is a move that is expected and a move that is absolutely warranted. And I would not be surprised to see some more roster moves come down the pipe. Not in the form of a Paolo Banchero trade or anything like that. But I think we're going to see a much different Magic team next year than we saw this year. Jamahl Mosley is just the beginning.
Your point is so well made because they outperformed in the playoffs for our expectations due to the fact that they underperformed during the regular season to what the expectation was for the Magic. And I think we have to have that context. Like, this isn't just, even though I set this up talking about a Game 6 meltdown, it's not just about the meltdown. I think a long playoff run might have bought a little bit more equity here. But the fact is, Orlando was not, throughout the course of the entire season, the team that most of us thought Orlando could be and should be. And sometimes you look at it and you have an easy answer to the why. When you look around it and you can't figure out exactly why your team is underperforming, you just know that it's not living up to expectation. The fact that there were real conversations this year, are they going to have to move on Paolo Banchero? Like, that shouldn't be real. You're talking about a number 1 overall pick that has performed incredibly well. So at times. So to me, this comes down to the fact that the easiest thing to do when you are a roster that's underperforming, the easiest change to make is to look at it and say, okay, we'll find a different voice and we'll find a different mind in the room that can help bring this about. I never root for any coach to lose their job, of course, but this is not a shocking move. I think to most of us, it's probably not a shocking move today to Magic fans. And I still stand by the fact that this is a young, dynamic team with a lot of talent that should be better than they were throughout the course of the regular season. So now they got to find the right person to come in and make the most of that talent. We'll keep you updated on any other news, but also we've got more playoff action happening as we're about to get underway with the Spurs and the Wolves, Caroline. Obviously, Spurs, San Antonio, Minnesota. I mean, I want to sit here and say Minnesota's got no chance. Problem is, I said that about a week ago, and there's Minnesota. So I'm the first to admit, look, as much as I love San Antonio, Minnesota has slapped us all in the face and said, you will respect me.
100%. And look, the news there that Anthony Edwards is questionable for game 1. Obviously, we all would feel significantly better about this Timberwolves team with Anthony Edwards than without Anthony Edwards. But I still absolutely give Minnesota an opportunity in this series. I absolutely think the Timberwolves can win this series. Am I going to pick them and put my money on it? No, I would still take San Antonio where things stand right now. But I can see a path for Minnesota. Why not? We literally just saw it against Denver. And I think the Timberwolves defense has looked absolutely stifling. This Timberwolves team has looked significantly better. They have a sharper edge. They're playing with more tenacity than maybe we saw in the regular season. And look, if we're talking about battles of French bigs, I'll take Victor Wembanyama over Rudy Gobert 7 times a week and, 7 days a week and twice on Sundays. But we just saw from Rudy Gobert how he can take games over against offensive juggernauts. And also, let's keep in mind, this is something that I pointed out with the Sixers and the Knicks series that I will be consistent with here, that I trusted the Knicks because they've been here before. San Antonio hasn't. And that is something that I'll continue to bring up with this Spurs team as far as they get into the postseason. They are a young team. They are an inexperienced team. And we just saw Victor Wembanyama win his first career postseason game in that first round. So I want to point out here that while I think San Antonio absolutely has what it takes to get to the Western Conference Finals, we'll see about OKC. This is still a young team. It's a green team. It's a team that has a limited postseason experience, and it's a team that has limited experience together. Minnesota's been here before. They've been to the Western Conference Finals. They've gotten past teams that nobody expected them to get past, not just this series, or not just this season, but in the past. So I see a path for Minnesota. While I'm not betting on it, I can see the path.
Well, and there is, let's say, a discrepancy between insiders on what's going to happen with Anthony Edwards. As we had Chris Haynes up earlier telling you he's questionable for game 1. I got to point out, Shams yesterday on Inside the NBA before the tip-off said clearly that his quote is Anthony Edwards will be back in the lineup by game 3 or 4 at the earliest, depending on how recovery goes, and the team will be conservative with his return. So I don't think we even have a consensus on when Ant is going to play in this, because I've got one insider telling me he's questionable for game 1, and I've got another insider telling me they're going to be conservative and it's 3 or 4 at the earliest. If they don't have Ant for the first couple of the games and they get slaughtered in San Antonio, I'm not concerned about that. Losing the first 2 games of a series is almost par for the course at this point for the NBA, right? But if Anthony Edwards isn't back by game 3, that's where this series just gets out of hand to me. And the other part of it is, I'm always going to step back right now and say, moving forward, the biggest question is who on your roster is going to shut down Victor Wembanyama? I don't know how Minnesota puts enough pressure on San Antonio. I don't know how they slow down Wemby. I don't know how they score enough. I don't know what they do to stop. And you're right. The youth of San Antonio has to be covered. We have to treat San Antonio the same way we treat every other young team that hasn't had a dynamic playoff run. A year ago right now, if we had been doing Yahoo Sports Daily, our conversation about OKC would be, well, we haven't seen them do this, so let's see what it looks like. And I hate it, but it's real because playoff basketball is different, right? So I don't want to discount this team simply for what they haven't had the opportunity to accomplish yet, but that has to be part of the San Antonio conversation. How they handle the pressure of a long series if they get one. What's that look like? I think these are all real conversations we should have. I just don't know how Minnesota can compete if they don't get Anthony Edwards. And I think the fact that we have 2 insiders giving us different information speaks to the fact that everybody right now is scrambling to figure out when Anthony will be back and also what role Ant can play once he's back on the court.
And I think it also depends on maybe how this series goes. You know, I think it would be fair to say that maybe Minnesota feels differently about Anthony Edwards' timeline if they fall down 0-2 or 0-3 in the series. I think the way that things might look, that where the series stands after game 3 or game 4, let's just live in a world where Minnesota is up 3-1 after game 4 and Anthony Edwards has still not come back from injury. Like, I do think that Minnesota probably feels differently about his timeline. I'm not saying I expect that to happen, but I am saying the course of how the first 3 to 4 games go might dictate the way that the Timberwolves approach Anthony Edwards' recovery. But all of that to say, Fitzy, you know, I do think that after a while, you know, we're looking at this with the Sixers and Joel Embiid's availability. And it might be fair to say that people are listening to the show and screaming through their screen and saying, okay, well, the Minnesota Timberwolves were able to do it against Denver without Ant. Why can't they do it against San Antonio? I just think that there comes a certain time that you need your superstar out there. I think we would be wildly underestimating the impact and the importance of Anthony Edwards if we said that, they'll be fine without him. They were able to do it against Denver. They can do it against San Antonio. I think that we're wildly underestimating the importance of Anthony Edwards. And I do think over time that getting him back has to matter. It cannot be as simple as, well, they were able to do it without him against Denver, so they can continue to do it without him. I don't think that that's a fair way to look at his impact for this team.
100%. Also, Ant has struggled with injuries all year. So there's also a fine line for Minnesota. They need to capitalize on what they have right now, especially if they're in this series against the Spurs team that I think should have looked more dominant. I think it's fair to say that the Spurs didn't live up to my expectations in the first round, right? So I think the Spurs needed to look more dominant, and now you're the Timberwolves, and you're trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do with Ant? How am I going to protect him a little bit? How do we make sure that we get him when we need him, but also we don't risk anything long-term? It's a bone bruise, and whenever he can manage the pain, I'm sure he comes back into this. But it has been just an ongoing onslaught this year of injury issues for Anthony Edwards. The Timberwolves got to figure out how to keep him healthy, Caroline, not just for this series. Like, as much as my temptation is, like, get him out there. You need him, and if you think you've got a shot, get him out there. But they got to figure out also what long-term looks the best. So coming up next, we're going to talk to somebody that knows the Philadelphia 76ers better than most, the best host in all the land. And I'm not just talking about hosting SportsCenter. Coming up next, Kevin Negandhi.
Broader question, I think, from the Phoenix side. How do you feel about their direction moving forward? How do you feel about their ability to build off of what this season was?
How could you feel bad about the direction? They weren't supposed to be here. You have a coach that understands exactly what he wants to do on both ends of the floor. So just getting the right pieces around it, having a level of versatility, that's all you got to do. So I think it's a salute to Phoenix. It's unfortunate it went this way in the playoffs, but the Thunder are a machine, and it was a bad matchup.
There were rumors that this was going to happen before the draft, that Jadarian Price was going to end up going to the Seahawks at 32. I think you can make a very strong argument that you could take Price as early as the 106. That might end up getting you in trouble, but I don't know if I feel that strongly about some of the other players in that range.
There was not many other depth charts like across the league where there's just a smooth sailing spot to that running back one position.
Also got a rushing touchdown. Gonna run it to Brown. Flea flicker. Back to Myler. Under pressure. Myler throws it late. Brown. And Brown, the stiff arm, crosses midfield. Down the far boards. Brown for the end zone. Waltzes in for the Rattlers touchdown.
That's the MVP throwing to the offensive rookie of the year right there.
So Brown took the handoff, flipped it back, and then he found space.
The truth here is this is a very far delineation from where the top of the quarterback game is right now, physically.
Correct.
You know, when you look at, like, you call the top 12 quarterbacks, everyone's got some sort of extreme physical trump card.
This ain't Taylor Green.
Part of the problem to me with this pick is you saw exactly where the physical limitations hurt Ty Simpson last year at Alabama.
Simpson is a pretty good athlete, but I'm not going to run design runs with him because he'll get crushed.
Don't want to hear any first-round crap. Sixers were down 3-1. They were blown out multiple times. They took down a Celtics team 3 times in Boston. Team many felt could win the East, a franchise that has haunted us for decades in the postseason. You ain't going to downplay this. That from Kevin Negandhi, not only ESPN SportsCenter host, but also host of the single greatest Christmas party you will ever go to in your life. Kevin Negandhi, my friend, how we feeling? How did you celebrate this huge win for the 76ers?
There was really no celebration because honestly, I've gone into this whole playoff like, hey, I have no expectations. I know what they could do when they're healthy. I know where this team could be. And to be honest with you, when you're a Sixers fan, especially the last few years, you go through a lot of heartbreak. So I actually protected myself. I just want one thing I did not want is all the dismissive stuff about, oh, well, Tatum didn't play. But where was Tatum in Game 5 and Game 6? You win 3 games in Boston. Don't take it away with what this team did. And I know Jaylen Brown doesn't care what I think or what a lot of Sixers fans think. But when you look at the foul disparity, it was 136 to 132. So don't complain about Joel flopping. He has a tendency to go down. But I will say, Jaylen Brown, that forearm shiver where you didn't get called for and Tyrese fell into Joel Embiid, that could play a role here in this next series. So I can't stand how the approach is afterwards, after you blew the 3-1 series and you guys had no answer for Joel Embiid, that you have to turn it into something else. And that's what we've seen over the last 24 hours with Brown.
I don't think I'm breaking any news here when I say that Philadelphia fans are passionate, right? They don't just dislike, they despise.
Yeah.
And when they love big. It's brotherly love. So where do you think Joel Embiid ranks right now amongst Philly sports stars?
I think seriously, we're talking about a guy that had his appendix removed 3 weeks ago. It's funny, I read something today where it was like, maybe the curse was the appendix. Maybe that's the thing that was the problem over the years. I think more than anything else, he's just been snake bitten. His body, this is not about lack of effort. This is not about the idea that he doesn't want to play. His body has been just breaking down through the years, whether it was the knee or the issues that he had with Bell's palsy or that broken face a couple of years ago where they were rolling along. It's not because of anything that Joel is saying, I don't want to play. So all Philadelphia fans care about is, do you care as much as we care? You may not be the best player, but if you passionately care about playing hard for us, then you're good to go. We accept whatever happens. And I think how we view Joel is, hey, he genuinely cares. we have a certain affection for Allen Iverson. Allen had his own issues right off the court. But when Allen played his ass off. We feel the same way with Tyrese Maxey. No matter what, Tyrese just plays when you have to, no matter what. He plays hard. And that's all we want. As Philadelphia fans, I think we look at Joel the same way. If only you were healthy, we do appreciate that you're giving the effort and you're doing everything you can. And I think this series, especially how they did it, I don't want to hear about the first round. I think this series and the history of the Celtics dominating the Sixers through the years, it showed a lot of heart. And that's all Philadelphia fans want. Do you care as much as we do? And now let's see how this plays out, man. If 21's healthy, I feel pretty good. But I will add one other thing. 2 years ago, how the series was reffed with Jalen Brunson and how the series was reffed with Tyrese Maxey played the biggest role because Jalen used his body effectively and Tyrese tried to do the same and he wasn't getting the same calls. So Tyrese is a different player. He is Mr. All-Star now. I think he's viewed differently around the league. Does he get the same type of calls that we're going to see Jalen Brunson get? And can the Sixers continue to have Joel down low and play kind of the old school basketball that we saw later in the series against the Celtics because the Knicks don't have an answer?
Kevin, let's get to the real heart of this. You are a superstar at ESPN, but you are surrounded by other superstars at ESPN that sure do love the Knicks. Are we trash talking Stephen A? Like, is that like when the game's going on, or are we just pulling it up and maybe just sending a little text after a big win?
No, I know better. Listen, if my confidence isn't completely there, Fitz, I've been going in with this approach, man. Hey, man, we got nothing to lose. We're the 7 seed overlooked, and we got the guy that's not healthy all the time. We got nothing to lose, and I think that carries a ton of weight. When you do not count on the Sixers, they surprise you. When you have expectations with the Sixers, they break your heart. So I've learned that through the years. Just go in with no expectations. And I've also learned if they lose game 1 by 20, I don't think it matters. Listen, they lost by 30-plus points. They got their doors blown off in that first game against the Celtics. Let's see how the series plays out, and let's see how they settle down. I'm not going with any trash talk because I've done that in the past, especially with the Sixers. And it's blown in my face, blown up. So I'm not going to do that this year. I'm just going to wait and see. I actually want to see. I want to see how Stephen A. handles it. I want to see how a bunch of other ESPNers handle it. I just sit there and wait. I just sit there and just, all right, who's going to blink first? Because you guys are more nervous than we are. We listen. We're the underdogs. No one's stopping the Knicks in the East.
I think we've all been victims of getting burned, of maybe trash talking a little bit too soon. But hey, that's what makes sports fandom so great. I said that I just kind of feel like the Sixers are playing with house money moving forward. Nobody expected them to be here. Nobody expected them to even get to 7 games with the Celtics, much less send them home after the first round. How do Sixers fans feel?
I think Sixers fans are just honestly getting the Celtics off our back. So when I grew up, I was a diehard, like my favorite team is the 1983 Sixers team. My favorite team of all time, Dr. J, Moses Malone, Andrew Toney, Maurice Cheeks. I can go on and on. I actually have a Dr. J jersey here, and it is my connection. It's the one parade my mom took me to when I was 8 years old when they won it all in 83. In that window of the early 80s, it was Bird and Irving, and we despise the Celtics kind of like this generation, or I should say the last 3 generations despises the Cowboys. The problem is that when you don't have any wins against the Celtics over the last 40-plus years in the playoffs when it comes to series wins, you go through a whole generation that just doesn't think it's possible. So there are Sixers fans who are 41 years old that have never beaten the Celtics in the playoffs. So right now, where we're at is a sense of relief that we've slayed that one curse. That dragon is done. Now there's a generation of Sixers fans that have experienced this Knicks chatter over the last few years, especially 2 years ago. How the Knicks, took over the Wells Fargo Center or whatever it's called now, Xfinity Mobile Center, and made it their place. And I think Joel even talked about that post game about do not sell to the Knicks fans because the tickets, at MSG are a much more, because Philadelphia is, a much better place when it comes to affordability. So I think you can go down, take the train down and watch the Knicks play. We don't want them to take over that environment. So where we're at as Sixers fans is, all right, we're always overlooked by Boston. We're always overlooked by New York. Boston's done. We also know that this team is pretty darn talented. This team can do a lot of damage. Let's just try and make sure that we put the Knicks in their place. But at the same time, Sixers fans are like, I have no idea what we're going to expect with Joel Embiid because we don't know health-wise if he's if he's playing 5 games, 7 games, 3 games, 1 game. We literally have no idea because of his body.
All right. So one of the things that I think is beautiful about your sports experiences is you share them with your family, right? So watching the Eagles win a Super Bowl for you, like for me as your friend, watching you and your family watch the Eagles win a Super Bowl was a beautiful moment. What would be more meaningful for you? The first Eagles Super Bowl you watched with the family, or if you're sitting there with the family, you're standing courtside and you're watching as the Larry O.B. is raised by the 76ers?
Oh, man, that's actually a great question. Wow. I think the Eagles, just because of the connection that we've had, that I had with my father with the Eagles. I think that if the Sixers were to win, it would be a bigger connection with a bunch of my cousins because all of us have been on text chains. Like, listen, we're all diehard Eagles fans, but like a lot of us were just through it all with the Sixers and the process. And my kids don't understand where we were with the process 10 years ago and how bad the basketball was. It was so bad. So I think there's been frustration with my kids with the Sixers because we know how talented they can be. And then you got the Ben Simmons era and the James Harden era. And they're just like, Dad, I don't get it. But we were at that Raptors series in 2019. And we were, I wasn't at the Doink Doink game, but we were at, I think it was game 4. And if the Sixers would have won that game, they would have been incredible. So I don't know. I would still say the Eagles just because the Eagles play 20 games a year if it's a Super Bowl team. The Sixers, they're in a series, right? If it's a game 7, great. Now, I'll share this thing. My oldest is he's insane like me. He turns 14 this week, and he is constantly, Dad, this is happening. This situation's happening. And he's constantly talking to me and keeping me up to date, even though I don't need updates. But he needs to get it all out about the Sixers situation. What are we doing here? What's this matchup and all that stuff? I think he'd lose his mind for 2 reasons. Because we are surrounded by Celtics fans who are his friends, and we're surrounded by Knicks fans who are his friends. So he's got to hear the chatter left and right. So like this Sixers series was great for him. When the Eagles beat the Patriots, that was great for him. When they beat the Chiefs, it was like, I don't have a lot. But where we live in Connecticut, we got to hear it from Knicks fans and Celtics fans. And I think it gives him the chance to walk around a little head up high and be like, shut the hell up, I think if they were to beat the Knicks, there would be some real satisfaction because he's going into school today feeling damn good when he talks to some of his Celtics buddies who were feeling great last week.
As he should. I said it before, I will say it until I'm blue in the face. There is no trash talk and no pettiness, quite like basketball fans in the Northeast and how petty they can be. We just saw that gift from Sam Hinkie. And you just mentioned it, the Ben Simmons year, the James Harden years, been some rough years in Philadelphia basketball. Does taking down Boston feel like you finally made it through the darkness and into the light? And if not, what did the Sixers need to do?
When it feels like, I'll tell you, drafting Tyrese Maxey and drafting VJ Edgecombe, that's how we take away the darkness of those years of Fultz, Simmons, and then Harden. The reason why is Joel's had talent around him, but too often it was everybody watches Joel. Or we have ISO ball with Harden, and then you lose games 6 and 7 in that Celtics series when you're up 3-2. Here, it's Joel's at a stage in his career where he's like, I know I can dominate, but I also know I can trust Maxey. And Maxey has been absolutely the perfect fit for Joel, where it's, I got you, I got the energy, I understand, don't worry about it. And then you bring in VJ, he's been perfect for Tyrese, because Tyrese needed a backcourt guy who's like, I got you. I'm going to feed off of you. I look up to you. So when you have that kind of synergy, and then, PG-13 has been great. Paul George has been really, really good as a wing guy. And I thought he was really good in this last series. We're going to need him to be really good in this series because of the wings that the Knicks have. So to me, you could look at the symbolism in taking down Boston as a way of saying, all right, it kind of covers up what we've had to deal with Simmons as well as Harden. But to me, bigger picture, regardless of the outcome of this Knicks series, it just feels like, hey, our next decision down the road does not rely so much on the health of Joel Embiid. We have some stability in the backcourt that we could build on in their 20s in Maxey and Edgecombe. So we could build around those two guys regardless of Joel's health and body. Right? Because too much was on Harden and the unknown and dribbling the basketball, and too much was on, oh my God, why can't Ben Simmons just make a freaking layup? So we don't have to worry about that anymore, And so I think it's really more of drafting Edgecombe at 3 and then hitting in the 20s on Maxey. I think it's changed the entire outlook of the way the franchise is kind of viewed if something were to happen to Embiid or Paul George in the next couple of years.
You guys can watch them all over the ESPN shows. Obviously, 6 p.m. SportsCenter continually setting records with the ratings. He's Kevin Negandhi. Kevin, appreciate you, buddy. Say hey to the family for me.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you guys. Take care.
Great
Thanks,
stuff
Kevin.
from Negandhi, as always. There's a total wow from Kevin. We'll get you a total wow from the rest of the sports weekend coming up next.
Kick is on the way. And Dante Wright will bring it out of the end zone. Right across the 5, the 10, the 15. Right across the 20. Into New Mexico territory. 15, 10. 5. Does he get in?
He did.
Touchdown,
He did.
Pirates.
Dante Wright goes back. He played like a center fielder at Yankee Stadium and then takes it the length of the building. The young man was electric on that kick return.
Do you not enjoy this?
No.
Would you rather not do it?
That's not in the cards.
Why not?
It's not an option. I've worked so hard for so long. I've built myself up to a position and I've dug myself into a hole.
But I feel like you've reached a point in your life where, correct me if I'm wrong, you could do other things.
What am I going to do? There's nothing like a fight night check. That's the beauty of fighting.
Let's get to your next winner here, Boone. And this time we're not talking about rookie. We're talking about a veteran fallout. Who's a winner to you from the NFL draft?
I think Rashee Rice has to be mentioned, right? Now he doesn't have any additional new competition that we have to worry about, especially a guy like Tate could have shown up there and been that true outside receiver for them. But we're looking at his fantasy outlook right now, and fantasy-wise, this year and beyond, it still looks pretty good. He survived the draft.
Edwards has got it. Throw, tip, intercepted. Destin Mack, the INT. And he makes the biggest play of the game defensively for Orlando.
Great coverage on the back end by the Orlando Pirates. 4th down and 4. Destin Mack in coverage. Big time hit by Kyrie Coleman leads to the interception.
You see it right there, Sherry. DeVoe is the first female trainer to win the Kentucky Derby. We're going to cover that and several things here with one of our favorite new segments that we can run. I'm going to learn how to speak. It's called Going Owen. This is where we take something and we decide if it gets a wow. Caroline, did I do it okay? Wow.
Wow.
God. So you sound exactly like him. So we'll give you a story and we'll figure out if we're going Owen with it. If it's a full wow. If it's just it's a gift. All right, we'll start with the Derby. Long shot, Golden Tempo. We all saw the video. Plus the fact that we had the first female trainer to win in DeVoe. Doubly cool story. Exciting run of the Kentucky Derby. Are we giving the Derby? Are we going Owen on it? Are you going to give it a wow?
Of course. I mean, the Derby, let me be fair, pretty much always gets a wow. Because it's one of those events in sports that gives you the warm fuzzies. It's a tradition that has lasted the test of time. But especially this one, it's always cool to see something happen for the first time in history, to see someone kind of break that glass ceiling, to see a woman finally kind of break through and get a win in the Kentucky Derby. But also, I'm going Owen here as well because I learned something new about the world of horse racing and the Kentucky Derby. I did not know that a female trainer had never had a horse that won the Kentucky Derby. I didn't know that there just was that lack of female trainers in the horse world, or at least, having success at the Kentucky Derby. I frankly had no idea. Horse racing is a world that I'm kind of new to. Don't really know a whole lot about. So I will go, wow, to also learning something new about the world of horse racing.
I mean, it's impossible for me not to see the overhead shot and not give it an Owen. Like, I got to go Owen just when you look at how far back that horse was coming into the end and then just suddenly pressing the turbo button. Who knew horses had turbo button? But all of a sudden, boom, getting all the way around this thing. I thought that was absolutely incredible. Also, kind of crazy that all but one horse has direct lineage to Secretariat. So every single horse except for one in the Derby is in some way related to the most famous horse of all time. So that's it's weird, but also a double wow for me. All right, so let's keep going. We're gonna go next with a little bit of hockey here. All right, Montreal dispatches Tampa Bay in Game 7. Now the Lightning amazingly become one of the more dominant teams in the NHL over the course of the last several years, but the Canadiens take them down 2-1. That's not the wow portion of it. This is the Habs win despite only having 9 shots on goal, fewest ever in a Stanley Cup playoff win. Are we giving that a wow?
Absolutely. That is a wow. Especially when you look at the recent success in the recent history of these two teams. I mean, the Tampa Bay Lightning are the modern day, Tampa Bay and Florida are like the modern dynasties of today's NHL. The Tampa Bay Lightning have been at the pinnacle of the world of hockey for so long. And you look at the Canadiens and they haven't had nearly as much success. In fact, the Canadiens have had some pretty miserable hockey in Montreal as of late. So to see Montreal do that and to see it in the manner in which they did, 9 shots, is absolutely obscene. So I wouldn't be surprised to see another wow factor. I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe some changes come down the pipe here in Tampa Bay. I was even told to not be surprised if we see John Cooper, head coach of the Tampa Bay Lightning, potentially let go of his position, which is crazy to think about, again, given how much success Tampa Bay has had recently. But nothing is off the table here in Tampa Bay, is at least what I have been told to keep an eye out for.
How do you win a game where you only have 9 shots on goal? And you saw a graphic a moment ago, but I think it's worth pointing out. Colorado beat Minnesota last night 9-6. That's an actual score from an actual Stanley Cup playoff.
Crazy.
Colorado last night scored as many goals as the Canadiens had shots. Like, that to me is just a staggering statement to how different that game was for Montreal. That's not the way you typically win. For Tampa, you have to be absolutely losing your mind that you can lose the Stanley Cup playoff series in a game where your defense was so strong you only gave up 9 shots on goal. That is just absolutely not acceptable for a franchise with championship expectations. Speaking of not acceptable, how about this one? We'll throw in a little bit of going Owen for the Indoor Football League last night. Here I am, Caroline. Let me paint you a picture. I'm standing on the field in Las Vegas where I am right now, my second game of the weekend, hanging out. I'm over in the end zone, and all of a sudden I see a melee, a brawl. You see it right there. That is Mike Davis, coach of into Kevin Guy, coach of the Arizona Rattlers, that turned into a whole thing. We had a full-on brawl in an IFL game. I came running into that, and the glorious access of the IFL is I then put a microphone in each of the coaches' faces and just hoped that they wouldn't say anything that got us fined on the FCC. And then all of a sudden you had two players that started punching each other. The brawl was insane. I was in it. I was just trying not to get hurt. I am giving myself an Owen because I almost got tackled in this game, and then I was in a brawl, and somehow I didn't get hurt. I'm giving myself an Owen.
You deserve an Owen for that. First of all, for the hustle. That is the job of a sideline reporter, is, you got those boots on the ground. When you see something, anything happen, it's your job to kind of report on it, but especially a backyard brawl of this caliber. This is crazy. I was scrolling through Twitter last night. I saw a clip of this and I sent it to you. And I'm like, first of all, are you okay? Do you have a shiner? Are you going to be showing up to Yahoo Sports Daily on Monday morning with a black eye because you are in the midst of a brawl? But this is absolutely wild. Of course, you don't want to see people get hurt ever, but I do think that this is good for the game. People love conflict. People love physicality. So for the IFL, a league that you and I both cover and absolutely adore, but a league that is still growing and is still getting new eyeballs on it, dare I say this could be a good thing.
I mean, I'm not an expert lip reader, and you didn't have to be an expert lip reader to know exactly how Kevin Guy felt about Mike Davis and that. But I'm just saying, there was certainly, I'm glad I had my microphone off for that portion because that would have gotten all of us in trouble. And you do see in the video, late in this video, you'll see me in my little suit come running on up and trucking on up. Somehow I didn't
Look
get
at those
punched.
shoes.
It's really...
Good looking shoes, Fitzy.
Thank you for noticing. The shoes were really the perfect accoutrement to the outfit. Thank you. Let's get one more in here and get a little love to Malik Willis or not. I don't know. Malik Willis threw out the first pitch for the Marlins. Now, this is why you never want to throw out the first pitch, Caroline, because as you can see here, a little bit of an accuracy issue as it almost went into the stands. Should Finns fans be going Owen?
I don't think so. And, we could be going Owen in a good way or a bad way. I'm not saying that Finns fans should be going Owen, should be wow in a bad way because of this pitch. However, I do think that Finns fans should be feeling pretty bad, just like period. If you're a Dolphins fan and this, Malik Willis just throwing a baseball just for funsies is what set you over the edge after the years of dysfunction that the Dolphins organization has had, whether it's, paying all that money to Tua Tagovailoa just to let him, go to Atlanta, whether it's, the Dolphins completely stripping their roster, but still paying Malik Willis to win a bunch of football games, even though he doesn't have any weapons to throw to. If it was having a wide receiver room with literally nobody in it and not addressing that position until they drafted a guy with 6th round grades in the 3rd round. I mean, Stephen Ross, not even knowing the owner of the Dolphins, not knowing the name of their new general manager. I mean, the list of concerning things in Miami goes on and on and on and on to the point that your new quarterback that you're now paying $30 million a year, having an errant throw in a baseball game. Yeah, that's not really the thing that's going to set me over the edge. I got bigger fish to fry with the Dolphins, pun intended.
Bigger fish. Well done. Just go back and look at Mahomes throwing out the first pitch, and you'll see that, it's not always that easy. All right. Coming up next, we're going to be joined by a superstar in the NBA right now. Ryan Rollins is going to join us next. We'll get his thoughts on everything happened in Milwaukee.
This is rich to me, but again, this is this draft class. Once you get outside the top 10, it's like whatever. But I do think this is a little rich to me. But Les Snead loves his Bama guys. I know he went to Auburn, but he has a thing for anyone that's played in the SEC in the South. He really does. You should have seen his write-up on Julio Jones. It was like fan fiction. This to me is just like, all right, I get your argument. At 13, like that is, you're pushing it. You have one of the best rosters in the NFL right now. Right. This could be a difference maker at some position.
Now, I said to a reporter today, tell me the top 5 stars in the UFC right now. Islam?
Yep. Agree.
Tom Aspinall.
Okay.
Pereira.
Yep. Ilya Taporia.
Yes, he said him.
Hamzat Shamayev.
Yes, and him. I think that was the 5.
Okay.
And I was like, I just feel like right now I look at Tom Aspinall and think you are one of the biggest stars in the sport.
Give us your final loser here, Boone.
Denzel Boston. Among this rookie class, I think we had a lot of hope that he was going to go in round 1. That didn't occur. But they took a first-round receiver in Casey Concepcion, who I think is a better prospect. This team often has to deal with bad weather late in the season, which can also impact pass catchers at the worst possible time in the fantasy calendar. It all boils down to me not being nearly as excited about him as a prospect in Dynasty or redraft.
Edwards on second down, deep shot, end zone, jump ball caught. What a catch for 6. Edwards drops a dime, and Tulsa with Spencer Tears answers right back. 4th down for Orlando. They're taking an end zone shot, and they've got another touchdown. Paxton DeLorette is dealing on a Sunday.
Ryan Rollins was not named one of the 3 finalists for most improved player, but the Bucks guard deserves a big shout out for his breakout season. You see it right there. Points per game up from 6.2 to 17.3, a meteoric leap for somebody that took a leap in his play overall this season. And he joins us right now. Ryan, do you feel a little, well, thanks for the time, man. We appreciate you joining us. Did you feel overlooked in this most improved player conversation?
I mean, a little bit, but I think whoever, Alexander Walker, he deserved it in a way just for the fact that he helped his team, improve, and it was a winning organization over there at the moment. But yeah, I think just for the fact that I'm on this platform, even being in this conversation still was just the blessing of it all, kind of. So everything happens how it's supposed to, so you can't really look into it that way. But I'm just blessed to be in the situation, honestly.
I mean, you were certainly a bright spot for this season, for a Milwaukee Bucks season that, let's be honest, had a lot of noise surrounding it. There's a lot of question marks of, the future of the Milwaukee Bucks organization. So how were you able to kind of block all of that out and just kind of stay focused on your game?
Yeah, I was just controlling my controllables, everything that was happening on the outside and all the extracurricular, noise and stuff was just something that I really couldn't control. So it was just on me to go out there every night and just play my game, play hard, and just, have fun with the game and just go out there and make the most of it, which was try to get wins and, just keep building on success, honestly. So I just controlled my controllables. That was my whole mindset.
I mean, Ryan, for any of us that have been sitting in front of a mic, I feel like the conversation about Giannis has been going on for years, and it gets maddening. How do you guys feel it in the locker room when everybody's constantly asking what Giannis's future is?
Yeah, that's kind of goes with what I just said, kind of just control the controllables, because he says what he says in the locker room, and then everybody else is going to have their own perspective and, what they got to say on the outside about what's going on inside. So we're just going off of these saying or these how he's been to us towards a teammate, which he's great. He's always been locked in from day one, knowing that saying that he's going to stay here and that he's he's here. He's here. So he's locked in that. So all the other stuff they were saying was just outside noise. So, we couldn't really run with that too much. It was just more on what was going on the inside of the team. So that's all we could focus on for real.
A lot was made of your former coach, Doc Rivers, stepping away. And Shams Charania of ESPN did leak a report that he basically said, hey, Google me. I've won a lot of games and I've coached a lot of games in the NBA. How did you receive Doc Rivers' message that night?
I received it more as he was just trying to, get us all on the same page or one accord of it has to be a line of, professionalism and a line of authority in a way, you know what I mean? So I guess he was just trying to emphasize that and make that a big emphasis in that moment. But I mean, he said what he said. I can't really don't want to go too much into it on the backside of it, but yeah, it was a tough situation in that moment. I would say that for sure.
So, with that being said, Taylor Jenkins, your new head coach, what kind of conversations have you had with him? How have you been able to sort of get a relationship with him going so far?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't called him, but I have texted him a couple times too. Just congratulating him for him and his family. It's a good situation that we're coming into. Having a new head coach, and don't know all that's going to be switched around by the time next season comes. But I'm just ready to come in and just make an impact and just continue the growth and just build a culture and a winning foundation. You know what I mean? That's really what I'm keyed in on and ready for next season.
Yeah, and Taylor Jenkins has a great history of that. He was able to kind of turn things around in Memphis. So turning the page on to next season. And the Bucks are a lottery
That's right.
team. So you guys do have a chance to win the number 1 overall pick. So let's just say that Milwaukee is able to land the number 1 overall pick, even with a slight chance of winning it. Let's say that y'all are able to do it. Who would Ryan Rollins, the general manager, so I'm going to give you a new job. Congratulations, you're the new GM of Milwaukee. Who would you select with the number 1 overall pick if the Bucks were able to land it?
Oh, number 1. Me personally, I'm gonna go with the bouncer just for the fact I like his versatility. I feel like he's probably in the middle out of all three of you guys. That's in the running for it. He's probably in the middle size wise, but I just like his versatility, being able to play probably 1 through 4 when it comes to the NBA. If, the talent and everything correlates and translates. Yeah, I would say them, but all three of them are talented though, and there's a lot of young people that's in this rookie class and super talented. So I'm excited to see what happens and what draft pick we get and what happens.
We started this interview talking about your improvement. What do you attribute that to? What changed this season for you?
I mean, the main thing, it was just confidence. As you continue to play, you get the reps, you get the time, and you just get to learn from experience. I think that's the best teacher is experience. So when you get to play through your mistakes, it just helps your confidence grow. And in those moments, it's just playing the game. Like once your confidence gets to growing and you're actually feeling in your groove of the basketball term, it's like the work starts to show. And when that happens, it kind of this happens. You know what I mean? Like it kind of shows in a way. And it's really just the work. So the work comes first always. So as you do that first, it will show.
I feel like the national media conversation isn't always necessarily fair for smaller market teams. As somebody that is from a smaller market, and I feel like my teams don't necessarily get the same kind of recognition that they deserve. What are maybe some misconceptions that you would want to clear up about the city of Milwaukee, the Bucks fan base, and the Milwaukee Bucks franchise?
I would say the main thing just recently, how LeBron said the whole thing about Milwaukee, and I think Memphis was the other city. Milwaukee's a great city. They got great food spots. Everybody in Milwaukee is super friendly. There's a lot of hidden gems out there, but I think more so he was trying to get towards was like as if you're a visitor team, it's not really a lot to do. But if you're from there and you get to go around the city a little bit, meet people, it's a great city. Everybody's nice. Everybody's friendly. They're welcoming. They show a lot of love out there too. Milwaukee's a great fan base, and I like it, man. It's a low key spot. I'm a low key guy, so I guess it fits me.
Hey, look, Ryan, I'm going to be honest with you. I toured in a band for years, and my favorite city to have a day off in, Milwaukee. Calderon Club downtown, my favorite restaurant.
Yeah, fire. That's one of my favorite spots.
I am in on Calderon. Say hey to Gino. Next time you're there, say hey to Gino. He's a good friend of mine. Like that Calderon is absolutely life for me. So, look, I think Milwaukee gets a bad rap. But for you, you talk about control the controllables. When you're playing in a place that maybe it doesn't have the same, I always say, if you play for the Knicks, you have a bad game, you go out afterwards, the guy that sells you your pizza is going to give you a piece of his mind. Is there peace that comes being in a market like Milwaukee where you have a better opportunity to just focus on you and you don't have as much going on?
I mean, yeah, in a way, but I feel like either or, if you are in New York, you kind of just have to be mentally tough to be able to handle that, just knowing the situation that you're in. But I think it is easier for the low market teams like Milwaukee, for example. They give a lot of mercy in a way, even if things aren't going the best way, then they still show love and aren't, disrespectful in any way, shape, or form. It's more of I appreciate you for what you're doing for the city, so I can show that appreciation right back to them just for the support.
Now, you have seen this Pistons team, the Spurs team, the Knicks team, the Sixers team. You've seen so many of these teams that are still remaining in the postseason. which do you think is maybe the biggest threat, let's just say in the East?
I like what the Pistons did, coming back 3-1. They had I was very, and I'm from Detroit too, so it kind of hit home a little bit more, no, more so. But I would say the Pistons are the Knicks. I like the Cavs too, but I like what the Knicks did, and I like what the Pistons did to end out both of their series. A lot of momentum for both of those teams, so I think that's the biggest thing about the playoffs. Just coming in and clicking at the right time. And I think both of those teams are doing that right now.
Who's the player for you when you look at all the playoffs that are left? The one guy that you look at and say, man, that is the guy in this. Who's the guy for you?
All the playoffs?
Yeah.
I would have to say Shea. I mean, Shea's doing it right now, man. He's coming off championship, MVP, one of the MVP finalists. Yeah, Shea, he's doing it for sure.
What about maybe the most underrated player? Because we know, the Sheas, the Wembys, the Jalen Brunsons, household names in the NBA. But who is that player that you're like, we are not talking enough about them, other than yourself?
I mean, yeah, me personally, just from the playoffs, I need to go with the playoffs. Tobias Harris had a super, super series, honestly. He was playing great. And, he's one of the OGs in the game right now, but just salute to him for what he was doing this series. I think he was second leading scorer on the team and everything. So yeah, I mean that just comes first to my mind just recently seeing him play. But people not really talking about him too much. He's one of the older vets, but he had a great series, man. It's a big reason why they, made it to the second round.
So when you see these teams that are still playing right now, and then you look at the team that you're on, what do you think Milwaukee needs to do to accomplish to get to that level again?
I think the main thing is just, starting from the foundation, starting from the ground up of building our identity, having that be set and everybody knowing what that is. That's a part of the, foundation and a part of the team at that moment. And just building upon that, whatever that may be. We just have to find our identity and, lay our hats on that, whether it's defense or has to be defense, honestly. So just letting that be the main thing and just letting everything flow from that and just being on the same accord and, having that winning spirit and culture.
What are your plans this offseason, whether it's training, whether it's on the court or off the court? What does this offseason look like for you?
Spending a lot of time with my family, relaxing right now. But then, once I get back to the swing of things, working out a little bit more. I like to travel in the offseason too, so I maybe try to hit some new spots and experience some new things, Yeah, for the most part, I'm going to just try to make the most of my off time right now, relax and take it back for now. But when time gets going, when I'm back on the court, I'll be ready for that for sure.
So you received the March NBA Cares Community Assist Award for your work with the youth. Tell me a little bit about why giving back is so important to you.
I think the main thing was kind of my mom instilled in me from youth. Both my parents, my mom more specifically, excuse me. She always said, to whom much is given, much is required. So I think just if you're being in a position to be blessed to have a lot, I think it's just on you to, return that favor to whoever that may be, to the people that are, less fortunate or whatever the case may be. If you're able to give back to somebody, I think that's just the right thing to do when you're blessed with a lot. So I just make that a big emphasis. I have a great team around me that helps me, find avenues of what I, care the most about and things that I think will make the most impact to, what I'm trying to, I guess, give back and prove through these. I wouldn't even say prove, but more just express my gratitude and my care for others.
That being said, you spent your whole life working for this opportunity. You're giving back. What's it mean for you when you turn around and you see a kid wearing your jersey?
It's dope, man. Even just from the games or even just outside the game, it's super dope, man. It's a super blessing that I could be that type of person for somebody, that type of inspiration, motivation, whatever that may take from me in that moment. It's just it's a blessing, man. And I can't be more grateful enough that I'm blessed to be in that position to be that for someone.
Ryan, man, we appreciate your time. We appreciate all that you're doing. Like I said, next time you're called our own club, tell Gino I said hi. We appreciate you hanging out. Congratulations on the huge increase this year. It's only the beginning for you. We all know. We appreciate you hanging out with us.
I appreciate y'all. Thank you for having me, for sure.
Ryan
Thanks,
Rollins
Ryan.
joining us. Absolutely great stuff. He's having a great year. He's no state of emergency for him, but in Boston, they might be having one. We'll tell you why next.
Broader question, I think, from the Phoenix side. How do you feel about their direction moving forward? How do you feel about their ability to build off of what this season was?
How could you feel bad about the direction? They weren't supposed to be here. You have a coach that understands exactly what he wants to do on both ends of the floor. So just getting the right pieces around it, having a level of versatility, that's all you got to do. So I think it's a salute to Phoenix. It's unfortunate it went this way in the playoffs, but the Thunder are a machine, and it was a bad matchup.
There were rumors that this was going to happen before the draft, that Jadarian Price was going to end up going to the Seahawks at 32. I think you can make a very strong argument that you could take Price as early as the 106. That might end up getting you in trouble, but I don't know if I feel that strongly about some of the other players in that range.
There was not many other depth charts like across the league where there's just a smooth sailing spot to that running back one position.
Also got a rushing touchdown. Gonna run it to Brown. Flea flicker. Back to Myler. Under pressure. Myler throws it late. Brown. And Brown, the stiff arm, crosses the midfield. Down the far boards. Brown for the end zone. Waltzes in for the Rattlers touchdown.
That's the MVP throwing to the offensive rookie of the year right there.
So Brown took the handoff, flipped it back, and then he found space.
The truth here is this is a very far delineation from where the top of the quarterback game is right now, physically.
Correct.
You know, when you look at, like, you call the top 12 quarterbacks, everyone's got some sort of extreme physical trump card.
This ain't Taylor Green.
Part of the problem to me with this pick is you saw exactly where the physical limitations hurt Ty Simpson last year at Alabama.
Simpson is a pretty good athlete, but I'm not going to run design runs with him because he'll get crushed.
2 nights in a row, Boston fans leave TD Garden after seeing their team get eliminated. That is just an ouch tweet to the city of Boston that over the course of the last several days, not only did they watch the Celtics get eliminated by the 76ers, they also watched the Bruins get eliminated by the Sabres. This is a fan base that is watching the Patriots get their butts kicked in the Super Bowl and the Red Sox firing their manager after just an awful, awful start. So right now, are Boston sports fans losing their mind, Caroline?
Well, Boston sports fans are always losing their mind. Like, let's just make that clear. They have never been chill once a day in their lives. But I think that's part of what makes Boston sports fans so fun and so unique, why we love them. It's because they're so passionate that they literally drive themselves crazy. Now, one thing I don't want this to become is Boston sports fans have had so much success for so long that they have no right to be upset about their team sucking and the Celtics losing. No. I don't think that that's fair. Because just because Boston sports fans have experienced all the Super Bowls and the Brady years and a Celtics championship not too long ago, and, you know, the Red Sox and all the success that they have had over the last couple of decades, doesn't mean they don't have every single right to be pissed off. Just because they've experienced the pinnacle of the sports world doesn't mean that they're any less embarrassed that they got sent home by the Sixers when we felt like they had the clearest path to the NBA Finals. Like, just because you have so much and have had so much doesn't mean that you can't experience heartbreak. I also do, you know, the question is funny. Like, should they be panicking? They were literally just in the Super Bowl like 3 months ago. So, like, maybe let's pump the brakes a little bit there. But I just don't think it's fair. It's like saying, you know, oh, well, you know, wipe your tears with your millions. Well, rich people have feelings too. And just because Boston sports fans have had so much success, you know, if you're a 20-year-old Boston sports fan, you've never experienced a bad day as a Boston sports fan. But just because they've experienced so much good doesn't mean that they can't feel the same amount of pain when it's bad. Like, let's not gaslight these sports fans into thinking they can't be upset.
We disagree on this. It's not that they can't feel the agony. Fine, feel the agony all day long. When you swaggy walk and you remind me constantly that you're a Boston sports fan and that means you get championships, when you constantly remind the world how good your teams are, when they don't reach your level of expectation and you lose your mind, you ain't going to get any pity from me. I mean, I'm turning around. I'm looking at a Patriots team that was just in the Super Bowl. And the maddening part about that isn't that they lost the Super Bowl. It's that Patriots fans were overall pretty okay with losing the Super Bowl because they looked around and said, hey, we got our next Tom Brady. This is about to be a long run for us. We're just going to do this again. You're talking about a team, a city that has nicknamed themselves Title Town for the 12 major championships they won between 2002 and 2019. You're talking about a town that just saw a Super Bowl, that just saw an NBA championship a couple of years ago, that has seen the Red Sox turn their fortunes around and no longer be talked about as cursed. You're talking about a city that reminds us constantly how great they are as a sports city. If you told me that suddenly it was Pittsburgh fans losing their mind, which, by the way, according to a tweet from DraftKings, Pittsburgh fans, the longest playoff win drought in any of the four biggest U.S. cities that they calibrated here, Pittsburgh fans haven't seen a playoff series win or a game win for the Steelers in 2,930 days. They have a reason to be upset. We're talking about the Penguins can't win a series. We're talking about the Pirates are irrelevant. Like Pittsburgh fans, I hear you. Celtics fans, you just watched the Super Bowl a couple of months ago. And now, oh, man, we can't win. Nobody's crying for you. Nobody's crying for you because when you win, you handle that with the grace that makes us all roll our eyes. So when you don't win, I'm not going to turn around and suddenly be the guy that gives you a hug. I love to hug. I'm a hugger. I ain't hugging sports fans from Boston because when they win, they walk around and get right in your face and remind you just how damn good they are. So, hey, if Boston fans are feeling a little of pain, a little agony, you got it coming for the way that you act when you win.
There's a difference, though, because nobody's giving them a hug. Like, I'm not giving anybody a hug when their teams suck, okay? That's just that's welcome to sports fandom. It happens. But there's a difference between patting the Boston Celtics fans on the back and saying you have no right to be upset. Because that's what I feel like the general sentiment is you have no right to be upset about your team losing. You have no right to be upset that your team had a championship upside, but they're going home after round one versus, I'm so sorry. I will not tell a sports fan how they should or should not feel. Because welcome to being a sports fan. Like, I'm not going to tell you that you shouldn't be upset. Because you have every right to be upset when you thought that you could have booked a hotel for the NBA Finals, but instead you got your butts whooped by the Philadelphia 76ers that were just playing in an NBA play-in game. You have every right to be pissed off because you set those expectations, and the expectations were high. I think you would be a coward to set your expectations high and then just be totally fine and all hunky-dory whenever your team loses in 7 games. It's the same thing. I will always admit it. I'm a spoiled sports fan. I was born and raised in St. Louis. I am a diehard St. Louis Cardinals fan. I have seen my team win 2 championships and go back to even more. And I was such a grumpy crybaby loser the past couple of years when the St. Louis Cardinals missed out on the postseason, even though I had seen the Cardinals make the postseason more than I had seen the Cardinals miss the postseason over a majority of my lifetime. I still had every right to be upset. Look, I went to LSU. I'm a diehard LSU football fan. I was talking to a Vanderbilt fan just a couple of years ago. This was before Vanderbilt got good and became relevant. I was talking about how annoyed I was and pissed off I was that LSU went 9-3. And this Vanderbilt fan was telling me, like, what do you mean you're upset about 9-3? I would give anything for 9-3. Yeah. That's you, because you don't have expectations. My team does. And even though I was just a couple of years removed from watching my team win a national championship and field the best team that we had ever seen in the history of the sport, I was still upset that my team didn't meet expectations. So if you're a Boston fan and you're getting gaslit into making you feel like you can't be upset about watching the Celtics lose because you just watched the Patriots in a Super Bowl, no. I'm here to tell you that you have every right to be pissed off. You have every right to be embarrassed. You have every right to want everybody fired waking up on Monday morning. Because just because you've seen success does not excuse you from regular human sports fan emotions.
Sure, but when you come to me for sympathy with it, I mean, my answer to you as an LSU fan, when you say, hey, 9-3 is not acceptable, Okay, you're probably talking to the wrong person then, because if my favorite team never reaches 9 wins, you're probably looking for sympathy from the wrong people. If you're going to Twitter X as a Boston sports fan and you're saying, I can't believe it, life is so tough, I can't believe we had to watch a Super Bowl loss and now we had to watch a 3-1 choke, it is so hard, you're probably barking up the wrong tree. Like that to me is the part. You're right. Like, that's fine. I don't have to tell a Boston sports fan they can't be angry today. That's not my role to tell them. But if a Boston sports fan wants to vent to me about how angry they are, I don't give a damn, because I would question. I think it's a fair pushback to any. If you're a Patriots fan and you say, oh my God, I can't believe we just lost the Super Bowl. How'd you feel in the 90s when your team was winning 2 games a year and your stadium was empty and you had absolutely no reason to be a sports fan? If you're a Red Sox fan and you're turning around saying, I can't believe the way this season has started. Okay, how'd you feel for an entire generation where all we talked about was Babe Ruth for no reason? We just talked about Babe Ruth. We talked about a curse. We talked about a curse more than we talked about actual baseball for a generation. So, like, how'd you feel then? I think offering the other perspective isn't necessarily gaslighting. If you come to me as a football fan, if you come to me and say, damn it, I can't believe that all we did was win 10 games. I'm a Raiders fan. If I saw back-to-back years of 10 wins, I wouldn't know what to do with myself. So if you're coming to me with sympathy, I am going to look at you and say, hey, man, I can't give you any sympathy. I'd kill to be in your shoes. Just like to the point that you made earlier, rich people have problems, certainly. But the rich person that's trying to figure out why their portfolio isn't managed well enough while they've got $3 million in the bank probably shouldn't go up to the guy that's making their hamburgers at McDonald's and complain to that guy about it. I think what Boston fans forget at times is that their bank account is stacked because they've had years of greatness. And while they may not be happy with the returns they're getting, if they're turning around to me and I'm working 3 menial jobs just trying to feed my family, I'm probably not going to be the most sympathetic ear to a Boston fan that's saying, woe is me right now.
Look, it's kind of the same thing as like, hey, I'm hungry. And then someone's like, I'm more hungry. I haven't eaten in 3 days. And it's like, well, okay, just because you're more hungry than me doesn't make me any less hungry. Like, just because, other sports fans have experienced more misery than Boston fans doesn't make Boston fans any less miserable for waking up with their team sitting at home and watching the rest of the NBA postseason from their couches. So yes, there are sports fans who have had it way, 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 way worse. Just like more people have been more tired in their lives than I was waking up this morning. Didn't make me any less tired, didn't make me pour any smaller of a cup of coffee. Like, yes, there have been more people that have been more miserable with their respective teams than Boston Celtics fans have felt with theirs. Like, I can only imagine what a Sacramento Kings fan or a New Orleans Pelicans fan is feeling right now about Boston Celtics fans. I get it. I understand. Far more sports fans have been far more miserable than Boston Celtics fans are feeling right now, but they are still miserable. And it's still, they are still have every right to feel miserable. Again, I will always go back to expectation. You as a Raiders fan, you unfortunately, Fitzy, have experienced a whole lot of bad football over a long period of time. But what were your expectations? Probably not very high. And when they are high and you fall short of them, it feels worse.
You're not wrong. I remember distinctly when the Raiders lost the Super Bowl, I looked at a buddy of mine and I said, I'd rather not even make the playoffs than keep having these heartbreaking playoff losses. I'd rather not even be in the thing than lose because Tony Siragusa fell down on my quarterback, or lose because of the tuck rule, or lose because of a weird Super Bowl. That's what I wished for. And then I lived through double-digit years with double-digit losses. And all of a sudden I was like, I would kill for 2 straight playoff years. So yeah, absolutely. My experience sort of jades my perception. I will say this, to credit Boston sports fans, part of what makes it amazing that you're a Boston sports fan is that you have annual expectations for championships. Like, that's part of the reason people hate Boston sports fans at times, is because they're jealous of the opportunity to have constant, like you are 1,000% right. That it's a little bit gaslighting and it's a little bit jealousy for so many of us when we sit there and say, I wish my team was there. It's because we're jealous our favorite team absolutely isn't there. So credit to Boston sports fans. It is your passion that we all wish that we had for our favorite city.
You're all psychopaths.
And we frankly,
and we love you.
That is true. Two things can be true. We can love how crazy you guys are. Also, we love the fact that we will be back right here tomorrow morning, hanging out with you at 9 a.m. Eastern. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Come back. Watch us tomorrow. Yahoo Sports Daily will be right here for you 9 tomorrow. Thanks.